Leon in the Championship, Chapter 34, entitled The Third R. By 7:45 a.m., Leon and his two best friends had already posted themselves near the entrance of the school. "This is it," said P.W. "Time for the third R." "You're sounding awfully confident," said Lily Matisse. "Why not? Let's just say I hope that this time the R stands for reanimation instead of reject or redo or replay or relax," said P.W. "It'll work. We've swapped out the energy source, plus we've got a superconductor for starter fluid." "You mean spit," said Lily Matisse. "Exactly," said P.W. "Yeah, well, we'll see," said Lily Matisse. "What's your first move, Leon?" P.W. asked. "Still planning to give Lumpkin a turbo wedgie?" "Of course not," said Leon. "I'm planning to make Lumpkin give himself one." "I take it a double backflip is out of the question," said Lily Matisse. "Afraid so," said Leon. "There's some stiffness in Lumpy's left leg. Besides, I want to hold off on the fancy stuff." "Enough gabbing," said P.W. "Let's get Lumpy primed." Leon wasn't leaving anything to chance. He insisted on fresh starter fluid, which Lily Matisse provided without complaint. Months of scientific research had made her less squeamish around saliva. Once Lumpy was properly soaked, Leon bided his time by doing finger exercises, variations on the warm-up drills his flute teacher forced upon him. 0800 came and went, and General Lumpkin hadn't showed. "The bell's about to ring," Lily Matisse warned. "Bell or no bell, I'm waiting," said Leon. "Me too," said P.W. Lily Matisse was about to object when P.W. spotted Lumpkin turning the corner. "Visual contact established," he announced giddily. "Target in sight. Repeat, target in sight. Assume attack positions." He and Lily Matisse planted themselves shoulder to shoulder, giving Leon a shielded post from which to work his magic. He pressed his palms against Lumpy's waist and gripped the figure's flexible arms between his own thumb and index finger. "Hey," he said urgently, "is Lumpkin a lefty or a righty?" "Lefty," said Lily Matisse. "You sure?" "Positive," said P.W. "He always noogies with his left." "That's right," said Leon, wincing. "Range? 45 feet, P.W. announced. 40, he said in a lower but still excited voice. 35. Lumpkin continued to climb the steps, unaware of the ambush. "Target in range," P.W. whispered urgently. "Repeat, target in range." Using thumb and index finger, Leon bent Lumpy's left arm behind his back, cautiously curled his tiny fingers, and hooked them onto the elastic waistband of the figure's custom-made underpants. "Bottoms up," said Leon, giving the shorts a quick, firm yank. Suddenly he detected a slight warmth in his fingers. He looked down at Lumpy and noticed his beady eyes seemed to be sparkling. "Oh my gosh!" Lily Matisse exclaimed. "Eureka-rooney!" P.W. cried. "Mission Control, we have liftoff! Repeat, we have liftoff!" And what a liftoff it was! Henry Lumpkin managed, with the help of Leon and Lumpy, to reach around and pull up on his own underpants so energetically that they rose halfway up his back. More incredibly, he maintained that improbable grip from the bottom of the steps all the way to the doors of the school, at which point he moved out of range. As soon as Lumpkin had disappeared, P.W. turned to give Leon a high five, but settled for slapping Lumpy's palm since Leon had his hands full. "Talk about action figures," said P.W. "And if I know Leon, the action's just starting," said Lily Matisse. The next chance to test drive Lumpy came during science lab. Leon grabbed a stool within range of Lumpkin, but far enough away that his hocus-pocus would escape detection. "Henry, is anything the matter?" Mr. Sparks asked soon after class had begun. Nah," Lumpkin answered unconvincingly. He wasn't about to admit that his underpants had taken on a life of their own. "Well, try to control the squirming," said Mr. Sparks. I've got something cool to show you. I'll need a volunteer. Leon couldn't resist a little covert finger work. Lumpkin's arm suddenly shot up straight as a flagpole. Henry? Mr. Sparks stuttered, as startled by the offer as Lumpkin was himself. Well, well, this is a pleasant surprise. Come up to the front. Lumpkin had no choice but to approach the teacher's bench. Right, said Mr. Sparks. First things first. What kind of chips should we use for today's experiment? My stockpile currently contains garlic, plain, and peppercorn. Garlic, I guess, said Lumpkin. Fine choice, said Mr. Sparks. While I retrieve the chips and chemicals, could you please fetch the stainless steel mixing bowl and wooden spoon that I set beside the sink? With the chemicals and equipment assembled, Mr. Sparks put on a pair of heavy-duty gloves and safety glasses and made Lumpkin do the same. All set, said Mr. Sparks. Let's get started. He handed Lumpkin the garlic chips. Think you can pulverize these? Yeah, said Lumpkin. I'm good at crushing stuff. He sure is, said Flossie Parmigiano. Henry Lumpkin can crush up just about anything, Thomas Warchowski noted. And he usually does, P.W. whispered to Leon as Lumpkin effortlessly turned the garlic chips into garlic powder. That's perfect, said Mr. Sparks. He again faced the class. You all recall I said I had something cool to show you. Here it is. Mr. Sparks reached for a special thermos and unscrewed the top. A vapor cloud rose up and spilled onto the lab bench. Everyone oohed. Nothing to worry about, chirped Mr. Sparks as he waved his students to the front of the room. Liquid nitrogen, minus 320 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the science teacher's best friend. After potato chips, of course. Horror movies use the stuff by the tank load for special effects. The class gathered around Mr. Sparks as the fog was clearing. Are you ready, Henry? I guess. Here's what I want you to do. Mr. Sparks tapped a flask containing a thick white fluid. Pour this emulsion of fat globules and casein micelles into the bowl. Then add this glucose powder and stir the two together with a wooden spoon. While you're stirring, I will add the liquid nitrogen. Then, on my say-so, sprinkle in the potato chips. Whatever you do, Henry, keep stirring. What the heck are we making? Lumpkin demanded. You'll find out in about 30 seconds, said Mr. Sparks. You can begin pouring and stirring. That's excellent, Henry. Now for some liquid nitrogen. Keep stirring. Henry, good. Now add the chips. Keep that spoon moving until the fog disappears. What is that? P.W. asked. Mr. Sparks removed a packet of plastic spoons from his satchel and spread them out on the bench. Find out for yourselves, he told the class. You mean we should taste that gunk? Said Antoinette Breed, unable to hide her terror. What's the matter? Said Mr. Sparks. Don't you guys want to be the first to taste test instant garlic-flavored potato chip ice cream? If you do, you'd better hurry. This stuff melts a whole lot faster than your run-of-the-mill store-bought ice cream. The fifth graders couldn't believe their ears. They couldn't believe their eyes. And soon they couldn't believe their taste buds. But the fascination didn't last very long. Moments after nibbling the frozen concoction, and once their tongues began to thaw, they all rushed to the sink to rinse their mouths. I guess Ben and Jerry can sleep well tonight, said Mr. Sparks. He checked the thermos as the students reclaimed their places. We still have some liquid nitrogen left. Might as well put it to good use. Any of you want to see a potato chip shatter like glass? The question prompted widespread cheering. I thought so, said Mr. Sparks as he poured the last of the frigid liquid into a styrofoam cup. Henry, he said, grab a pair of insulated tongs, pick up a potato chip, and dip it into the liquid nitrogen. Leon was tempted to use Lumpy to make Lumpkin do something stupid, but Lumpkin beat him to it. Henry! Mr. Sparks shouted. Don't! Lumpkin ignored the warning and tried to eat the frozen chip. Instantly, tongs and tongue bonded together. Chip fused to lip, and Lumpkin began to yell, insofar as it's possible to yell with a potato chip and a pair of metal tongues frozen to separate parts of your mouth. The whole class watched in stunned silence as Mr. Sparks rushed to the sink, filled a beaker with warm water, and splashed it on Lumpkin's face. Eventually, Chip fell from lip, tongue and tongs parted company, and Lumpkin slunk back to his stool. "Henry," said Mr. Sparks, "go and see the nurse." "Yes, Mr. Sparks,"